3, 2, 1.
This is the Chargers Unleashed podcast. Here are your hosts, Dan Wolkenstein and Jake Hefner.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. Today's show, of course, being brought to you by Charger Bolt Family, MyBookie, Golden Road Brewery, and UFC Fit in Temecula. Dan Wolkenstein.
Jake Hefner.
I feel that it is my obligation, my responsibility as a co-host of this podcast with you to give our listeners a fair warning here. If you are the type of listeners that we have on this show that tend to side with Dan Wolkenstein, where you are more of the optimist, more of the glass is half full type of person, more of the grass is greener on the other side, fair warning to you tonight. You are not going to like Jake Hefner for the next 60 minutes. I guarantee it.
Well, that's exciting. Coming
out hot.
They may not like Dan Wolkenstein either. Certainly not a rosy performance by these Chargers as they lost to the freaking Denver Broncos 28-13. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as well as subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Jake, this one hurt. Unfortunately, I was not able to watch the game live, although I saw the score.
You were one of the lucky ones.
I was one of the lucky ones, although I was one of the unlucky ones that had to go back and watch it not live, afterwards, recorded. And I got a lot of feelings. About this. You're going to be coming in hot. I feel like I'm going to be coming in hot. There's a lot of things to dissect in this game. What went right, what went wrong.
There was stuff that went right?
Biggest takeaways. There were some things that went right, but a lot of things that went wrong. But let's kick this off with when we talked about a preview of this game earlier last week. We talked about keys to the victory, right? We talked about what needed to happen for this game to end in a Chargers victory. I got to say, I think all of our keys were pretty dead on in terms of predicting the outcome of this game. Unfortunately, the Chargers they decided not to even remotely try to listen to us because we're the ones that really make the difference here, obviously. And the Chargers just provided arguably one of the most frustrating, one of the most horrific, one of the most gut-wrenching, but also one of the more, I don't want to say on brand, but one of those games where you're just like, what can go wrong will go wrong, and it will go wrong at the most inopportune times by the most inopportune people. Now, when you talk to people right after this game, or even during the game, people were all in their feelings about all kinds of stuff that went wrong. And there was a lot that went wrong. But the Chargers going into the fourth quarter were only down 14-7.
There's the glasses half full Dan Wolkenstein I was waiting to hear.
It was one possession game. The Chargers were within 20 yards of tying this thing up, and then the whole game unraveled. Yes, there was a ton that happened in the first half, obviously a bunch happened in the second half, but everyone talks about this game being like, this absolute no-show. It's not the case. It was not the case. The offensive game plan, I liked. Defensive game plan, I liked, aside from a few plays, which I'm sure we're going to get into. The Chargers just did not execute when it mattered most, and they did not finish. And that's what pisses me off about this game. I'm sure I'm more rosy about other things, but that pissed me off. We'll get into all the specifics, but in terms of what was the main factors in this loss. To me, there was no other factor more prevalent than the Chargers simply unable to finish plays. Period. And I got a slew of these that we're going to get into. But the inability to finish on those gotta have it plays turned into being backbreakers over and over and over again. I don't think this was on Justin Herbert's shoulders. I don't think this is on Lombardi's shoulders. I don't think it's on Staley's shoulders. I don't think it's on the defense's shoulders. People just aren't making plays when they need to make plays. They're in the position and they're not doing it. Period. So, oh boy. I'm a little nervous for Jake's initial thoughts, reactions, feedback from this game. We're not going to like him today. Let's just get this thing kicked off. Jake, the Chargers were only down one possession going into the fourth quarter. Given all the crap that happened, they were still in a position to come back and tie this game. Why should we be pissed off right now?
Dan, you talk about this being historically one of the more frustrating games that Chargers fans can remember, not just this year, because there has been some frustrating moments, obviously, this year, but you talk about going back the last couple of years. I mean, this one just really, I know New England felt more like a nostalgic type of Chargers loss where they literally just beat themselves. Mm-hmm. This to me felt worse than that. It really did. And I don't even care the fact that the score was 14-7 and going into the fourth quarter. I would have rather sat through a 3-hour root canal than witness what I had to witness on Sunday.
You're not
Dan,
wrong.
I mean, where do you start with this? The Chargers netted 7 yards passing in the first quarter. Their first 3 drives, they basically looked anemic. The Denver Broncos defense was ready for them. We talked about this last week. The Denver Broncos defense comes to play when they go against the Chargers. And Dan, how did we miss this stat, by the way? Since the year 2000, the Chargers are 7-16 when traveling to Denver. Doesn't matter who the coach is. You go all the way back from 2000. There's been plenty of head coaches that have circulated through the Chargers organization at that time. Plenty of players. And look at that stat. How did we miss that stat? We all got hung up on the great Justin Herbert against the Steelers. He was magnificent. Not going to take anything away from that. Comes out and lays a dud. Dan, I said this last week. This was the one thing that I was worried about is this team coming out flat. You did it the week after Cleveland when you came out completely flat and got your ass handed to you by Baltimore. And you did it this week when you came off of a fantastic victory against the Steelers in a gotta-have-it moment. And in reality, in a bigger time, that the Chargers could have seized back control of the AFC West, with the Chiefs not playing, with the Raiders beating the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, a divisional game, and you had all the makings in the world to make this happen. And this is the result.
I don't think they came out flat.
Dan. Say
what?
Okay,
hold on. Initially,
are you talking offensively or defensively?
I would say collectively. Like, they started off with 2 3-and-outs, which I think one of those ended up being delayed for a sack. The other one was a penalty. And then on the third possession, or I think one also was a batted down ball, which, again, you can give excuses on excuses, but I wouldn't say that's a flat thing. And then on the third possession on offense, that was a possession where Mike Williams had the offensive pass interference and Keenan Allen catches it for the long drive. And on defense, I thought their defense played pretty well. Forced a punt on their first possession. That's all you can ask for. There were some inopportune things that happened. That's for damn sure. But I don't know. In the first quarter, let's just say the Broncos beat the Chargers. I'll give them that. But I don't think that's a we came out flat thing. I don't think that's a we didn't have enough screenplays thing. They beat us in the first quarter. We'll give it to them. It's a 4-quarter game. Cool.
Okay. We'll agree to disagree on that point alone. I'm sure that we'll have some circle back.
This is going to be good.
This very statement. Dan, I'm texting with a close friend of mine who just so happens to be a Denver Bronco fan. It was right after the Joey Bosa strip sack of Drew Lock that, of course, falls into the hands of the Denver Broncos player. The Chargers are unable to recover. And that was the one play where, like, everybody went down. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. It may have been the Derwin James sack on Teddy Bridgewater the 2 plays before, where they lost
fumble.
Well, they lost Bridgewater, but then they lost their backup left tackle because Garrett Bowles was not playing in the game. So I get a text from my friend, Denver Broncos fan, saying, "Oh my God, we have no tackle depth." I said to him, "Dude, what are you worried about? Have Drew Lock just turn around, hand it to your running back, and run inside. That's all you had to do." And of course, what did the Denver Broncos end up doing? Just over 130 yards rushing. The very ill-timed of no containment, poor tackling showed up immensely throughout not just one quarter, but throughout all 4 quarters of this game. Joey Bosa allowed Teddy Bridgewater to roll out, score the first touchdown of the game. And again, that was the first text I actually got from my friend saying, "Oh my God, you guys actually allowed Teddy Bridgewater to get loose and run on a touchdown in?" It just shows you what Denver has not seen from Teddy Bridgewater. Of course, Drew Lock, but Teddy Bridgewater on top of that this season alone. And the announcers were saying, "Boy, Teddy Bridgewater doesn't get loose that often, but when he's playing against the Chargers, you better bet your ass that all possibilities in the football universe of happening is going to happen." Dan, how does a team go ultimately 8 for 11 on 3rd down without having a wide receiver that surpassed 30 yards in receiving?
It's sick.
None of this makes sense.
Well,
I just don't get it. And if I may just make one little exclamation point, just to kind of sum up my summary here, because I know that I could poke holes in all of this all damn day.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest frustration here, and I'm sure that this is the same with many Chargers fans, and I tweeted this shortly after the game, is the Chargers are the model of inconsistency. And after their hot start, getting off to a 4-1 start to start the season, Brandon Staley coming in here, changing the culture. You know, normally, historically, the Chargers don't get off to the fast start. So that was something different to see. But over the last month, essentially, the Chargers have been the model of inconsistency. To go from what you were doing on a 4-1 start for the season to now where you're at, I can't comprehend it. I can't understand what's happening.
Well, I can promise you this. I shouldn't say promise, but I'm fairly confident by the end of this, I think we'll know damn well what's happening. And I don't like it.
I don't think we are. I'm like you. I don't like it either. Because to me, Dan, it's unfortunately, there's not just one place of blame
agreed.
to put here. And we're talking blame from player execution all the way up to the top brass of the front office. It's not just one person.
Agreed. If there was one theme that I would say was what costed this team a victory, it was the lack of finish across the board. And we talked about it in the pregame preview, where we talked about, for me, like, keys to the game. Like, the offense needs to convert on 3rd down, defense needs to stop them on 3rd down. You got to get home, got to finish on those got to have it plays. And the third one for me was cut down on easy points. So let's quickly just go through these for a sec. Offense needs to convert on 3rd down. Defense needs to stop them on 3rd down. Offense did their job in this perspective. I think they went 50%. I think they go like 7 for 14, I believe. Jake, did you know the Broncos came in ranking 28th in the NFL on 3rd down conversion at just 34%? And they give
were
up
1 for 10 2 weeks prior when they played the Eagles.
73% conversion on third downs. They only had to have 11 conversions. 8 for 11. Unacceptable. Lost that one. Then I said, gotta get home. Gotta finish. And cut on easy points. Like, for the most part, I thought the defense actually played pretty darn good. Joey Bosa, Derwin James, for the most part, came out to play. Derwin James was an absolute monster in this game. Joey Bosa was a monster in the first half. Not as much second half. In my opinion, players were in the position to succeed all afternoon. All afternoon. The right plays, for the most part, were called all day. It was the lack of finish that cost this team throughout. And it came at the worst times. So let's just go through these, Jake. And this might be just a skip down memory lane, but this also might induce some sickly feelings for those because this made me sick when I was kind of watching this live, or at least watching on the rerun. First quarter, Jake. I'm sure we all saw it. Melvin Gordon run up the middle. Jerry Tillery had him dead to rights 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Misses it. Turns into a 5-yard gain. That's a 10-yard flip. Drive turns into a touchdown. Broncos go up 7-0. So there's one lack of finish. Second possession for the Chargers on offense. Mike Williams dropped a 25-yard pass. And then on third down, ball gets batted down. That would have been probably a 20-yard play to the tight end. But like, the one that they lack of finish was the Mike Williams catch. I'll give him that. Then we get to the second half. And this is where there was one defensive drive that was the summation of the entire game. Like I said, they got beat the first quarter. They made it a game, 14-7 going into halftime, got the ball back. I don't even want to talk about this. So Chargers are driving, opening drive third quarter. They get called for 2 holding calls, one on Parham, one on Kelemete, which I know we're going to talk about, number 68. Everyone saw you. There's also a false start. You still converted on third down, and you got all the way down to the 26-yard line. Then 68, again, just gets absolutely obliterated, gives up a sack, puts the Chargers in like a 52-yard field goal or so, ends up missing it. Then the defense gets an immediate 3-and-out, gives the ball right back to the Chargers. Chargers drive right down the field, churning yards. They convert a 4th down play to Guyton, which everyone saw was like magic coming out of a hat. Ball all the way down to the red zone. Ekeler gets a sweet screenplay down to the 5-yard line, 6-yard line, I believe. But then wouldn't you know it, illegal man downfield on the center, number 63. Ball gets placed back at the 25. Instead of 1st and goal from the 6, it's 3rd and 14 from the 25. Next play, underthrown pass to Cook in the end zone, interception in the end zone, 1 of 2 from Patrick Surtain. At this point, there's still hope, right? We're still feeling okay. But it is at this point when we talk about needing to finish, Jake, where the Chargers defense just gave up time after time after time on the worst times. This one defensive possession or series for this Chargers defense was the epitome of the entire game. And this is honestly, of all of the plays, of all the drives, this is the one that made me sick. This is all in one drive, okay? Early fourth quarter, this is right after the Chargers did not get it, after they got intercepted. Uchenna Nwosu has Javonte Freeman 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Then gets absolutely stiff-armed, turned into a 3-yard gain. That's an 8-yard difference, okay? 8-yard, bear with me. So instead of 3rd and 15, it's now 3rd and 7. Next play, Cortland Sutton makes like a 10-yard catch on the sideline on no one other than Tevon Campbell. So should have been 3rd and 15, would have been 3-and-out. Instead, it's not. Same drive, midfield. Bridgewater throws the check down to Javonte Williams again. Campbell is there for the tackle for no gain. Kyzir White's there to clean it up. But nope. Tevon Campbell, stiff-armed. Kyzir White, don't know where he was running to, but was taking a bad angle, didn't clean up the play. That turns into a 50-yard gain. Oh, and by the way, a roughing the passer penalty on Jerry Tillery gives them first and goal on like the 5. Same drive. This is all the same drive. 3 plays later, your best player on defense, or if not your best, your second best, Joey Bosa has Teddy Bridgewater dead to rights for this sack on 3rd and goal on a bootleg. I will take Joey Bosa 10 out of 10 times. Except this time, Joey Bosa gets stiff-armed by Teddy Bridgewater. And that turns into a fluke touchdown to their backup tight end. And at this point, Chargers are down 21-7 with 9 minutes left. All of that in one possession. That's enough for an entire game. That happened in one series. The lack of finish cost this team the game. And that was it. It was one series. It was a ball game until then. Then after that, things got off the rails. Ekeler drops what should have been like a 10-yard. I mean, it was a bad throw-ish, but he still caught it in both hands. Instead, bobbled, goes to Surtain, pick 6. Instead of it being like 10, 15-yard gain, so then there's 6 points the other way. The rest of it doesn't matter. That's what lost this game. The first half was ugly. Chargers made it a game. They figured out a way to make the 7 points, get into halftime, got the ball back. First possession, third quarter, was looking good. Then, like, the Brinks truck just was going backwards. And then, fourth quarter, one defensive drive, and the entire game. Obviously, offensive line did not do great. We'll talk about 68. But, like, otherwise, seriously, like, the team didn't do that bad. Like, and that's not me trying to put some positive spin on this. It's not. Like, the Chargers converted 50% on third down. If you go look at statistics, like, they look pretty good. I know some of that was on garbage time. The touchdown, at least, to Jared Cook was. But for the most part, like, your players played. But at the worst times, your guys can't finish. And sure, that could be because Tavon Campbell is out there when he shouldn't be there. But Kyzir White supposedly, like, has had one of the best seasons he's ever had. And he's not looking good in that game. Nwosu's missing tackles. Joey Bosa's getting stiff-armed. Bridgewater is scrambling out for a running touchdown, which never happens. Derwin James blows up Teddy Bridgewater. The ball can't get in your hands. You make Drew Lock fumble. Ball ends up randomly as a first down somehow to I think it was Tim Patrick who got it. Like, some of it was, like, unlucky. Just like, you got to be kidding me. Of course this would happen. But on the gotta-have-it plays, they just did not finish. And call a spade a spade. Like, the guys were there. It's hard for me to watch everyone just blame Brandon Staley or Tom Telesco or Joe Lombardi. Like, I can kind of get the Telesco stuff with, like, the lack of depth in certain positions to an extent. But, like, at the same token, you're not expecting this many of your secondary to be out. So, people need to be honest with themselves. Like, 68 needs to go. That was not a good performance by him, by any standard. Of course, Matt Filer had to not play in that game. Like, that was a big one. But then the other part that pisses me off, Jake, is that the Broncos had no offensive line. Like, literally, nobody was healthy on their offensive line by this, midway through the second quarter? Chargers couldn't capitalize.
Blake Kirschenberry at one point was their only healthy offensive lineman.
So what the hell? Lack of finish, lack of execution on the most important plays is what costed you this game, in my opinion. Why does that happen? Please, Jake, enlighten me. Why does that happen? How the hell does all of that shit happen on one drive, let alone the entire second half, it felt like? Like, is that coaching? Like, what is that?
Yes. Obviously, players going out and having to execute, yes, that's one thing. As I said a couple minutes ago, one of my biggest gripes about this and frustrations, as with the rest of Chargers fandom, is seeing how up and down and inconsistent this team has played for the better part of the last month. The other part that I have seen is that in the games where it is shown that defenses are confusing Justin Herbert. You go back to Baltimore, New England is the obvious one. You look at Minnesota, and you look at this game. These issues are happening from the jump. Obviously, Denver in those first 2 drives defensively were putting the Chargers back on their heels. 2 straight 3-and-outs. They did not know what was coming for them. Denver was controlling the time of possession extremely early. The Chargers just couldn't get going.
Mm-hmm.
And sputtered for the better part of the entirety of the game. They had their moments. As you said, Dan, they were able to make it a game there for a few minutes. But if you take the entirety, not just yesterday in Denver, the game in Baltimore, yes, you got your ass handed to you in that one. New England, Minnesota, 2 games that were also very winnable. I have yet to see Joe Lombardi, you could say Joe Lombardi and Brandon Staley collectively, not being able to adapt to the defense that is being played against their quarterback. And reality, again, this is another one of those scenarios where you're hearing it. Denver was disguising their blitz. They were playing in soft zone for a majority of the time. The other problem is that, Dan, they were getting through with only 4 guys. They were dropping 7-man coverages a shit ton of this game. So yes, obviously that's going to be a little confusing for Justin Herbert because he doesn't know who's coming. But when your offensive lineman is giving up 19 pressures in a single game,
5-on-4, and you're still losing.
That's not going to help. But to me, these are the type of scenarios where Brandon Staley has to realize what is happening. Joe Lombardi has to realize what is happening, and being able to adapt to that. Obviously, yes, the players have to go out and execute.
Okay, but here's where we disagree. I thought they did. Like, they got down to the red zone. They got down to the 6, opening drive, third quarter. Opening drive, third quarter, they got down to like the 20-something, driving all the way down the field, and then get called for a holding call. I think 2 holding calls, a false start, a sack, turns into a missed field goal. So they drive all the way down the field there.
Hey, that's fine. Now tell me what happened the rest of the
And then the next drive, they go all the way down the field, get down to the 6, and then get called back because of a stupid illegal man downfield on the center that doesn't do absolutely anything.
Yes, I'm not going to sit here and say that the stupid holding calls that are being played or the dropped passes that the Chargers added a number of those throughout this game, of course, that's not on coaching.
No, but that's
all
adapting.
I'm saying
they can't.
Right. I'm with you there. As a whole, it's like coaching and adapting obviously only goes so far. I get that, but it just I haven't seen it enough in these type of situations from these.
It hasn't resulted in
their
points,
game plan is. Right. Like the first drive of the third quarter, when you went down and you scored right before halftime and you had the opportunity to make it a tie game and truly swing the momentum in your favor, you put together a nearly 8-minute drive. In my opinion, it may have been my favorite drive of the entire game. And the strangest part is that it didn't even yield any points.
Of course.
Because that was more of a vintage Brandon Staley type drive, going back to the first game in Washington, chew up a lot of clock, limit their offensive possessions. You're basically playing the game that Denver's trying to play against.
Yeah,
is
kind of giving it right back to him
off the field.
Yep.
And I felt that's where they were going. But then one thing happens, which just completely unravels everything. Holding call, you give up a sack, you're in a long field goal scenario, Dustin Hopkins misses the field goal. Surprise, surprise. To me, they just can never get their footing back underneath them from that point on. They couldn't. And Dan, again, I'm not just talking about this game in Denver, because you could say that, okay, that they made their adjustments and they were able to move the ball better. Untimely penalties killed them. I understand that. But I'm talking about in general, collectively. If you look at the New England game and you look at the Minnesota game, and obviously you look at this game, it just seems like by the time that they do adapt, it's just way too late. It's way too late. Again, the game plan, for the people who watch First Take, Dan Orlovsky had something to say about Joe Lombardi this morning. And he's still saying, take the handcuffs off Justin Herbert.
See, but like that's
not saying the word. Not saying the words regressing.
I love Orlovsky, but like that's kind of a lazy take. Like, go back and watch. There were multiple plays designed to go downfield and were thrown downfield, and either because of penalty or because of drops or because of whatever, sacks, blown cover. I don't care. I don't know.
I understand.
It's there.
I understand. Again, it's not to me. To me, the sole reason why this offense is sputtering right now is not solely on Joe Lombardi's shoulders. He's part of the issue. Yes, he's part of the issue. Is he the sole reason for these struggles? No.
Let's go. Problem versus solution. Okay.
Okay.
Justin Herbert. Problem. Part of the problem, part of the solution.
Obviously, he's part of the solution.
Okay. Wide receiving core. Part of the problem, part of the solution.
It's kind of 50-50 there. When you're leading the league in drops, you're being part of the problem.
Okay, I'll give you that.
But you're really the only you're only the solution that can move this offense because the running game isn't doing anything. So pick your poison. Which one do you want? It's a catch-22.
Run game, aside from Austin Ekeler, like obviously that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive line, I would say more because of health than anything else, is part of the problem.
Right. For the majority part of this season, it has been serviceable.
Yes.
Serviceable.
Yeah. Offensive line for the most part of the season has been a non-issue. Like has never been an issue to the point where it has become like the main reason we lost a game, which it was all season last year. I don't think Lombardi is part of the problem. Like, or at least is part of one of the main problems. Like, sure, there are things that he could improve upon. Sure, there are things that we could do better with, like inside zone runs, or we can try bouncing outside of Ekeler more, or we can try, shot plays to Guyton. Sure, but like the fundamental reason why we are losing these games, I don't think the top 5 having to do with the coaching plan. I don't. It's guys are not executing.
All right.
Guys are not making plays. Missed tackles. Our depth is certainly hurting us right now at both offensive line and secondary. And then lack of I think it's an execution, but like they're just not finishing.
All right, Dan. Let's move away from play calling for a second. Let's focus on personnel.
Okay.
Chargers before the game activated and elevated Darius Bradwell from the practice squad before the game. And actually a lot of people on Twitter, I'm not sure if you had caught it, were very excited about this because they were thinking like, okay, he's going to get his opportunity now to try to take over the RB2 position, at least in this game. Yes. It's like, okay, give him a shot. We figured at least that it was either going to be Kelly or Roundtree that was going to be inactive. And it turns out I was a little bit surprised when I saw that it was Roundtree that was inactive for this game, and Kelly was still active. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this is interesting. How is this going to go over? So Darius Bradwell, who you activated, who you elevated, had 0 carries. The one pass that was thrown to him was incomplete. He was there, Dan, on even third down plays, which really got me confused. First off, if we're talking third and long scenarios, that should be Austin Ekeler back there, even if he's not getting the ball. That should be Austin Ekeler back there, and there's no question, you're not going to convince me otherwise. That should be nobody else. And then Josh Kelly, he had a little bit of his own little highlight trying to leapfrog defender. I actually thought he killed his knee because the helmet got him right on the knee when he tried to hurdle. I was glad to see that it was okay. But I don't understand that personnel, especially why are you going to elevate someone like that and have these running back active if your intention is to not really feature them that much in the game? And Dan, this is where we have to go back to the interior of the defensive line, because this is where something that a lot of people are actually pretty timid about. After a great
You're so kind with the word timid. That was very nice of you.
Yeah, I could be a lot more forthcoming and just I could be a lot worse than that. But for the sake of argument, I'll leave it at that. After the great performance that your backup interior defensive lineman put under the circumstances that Linval Joseph, Jerry Tillery, and Christian Covington were out against the Pittsburgh Steelers game, the likes of Joe Gaziano, Forrest Merrill, and Brendan Fehoko were limited to a collective 22 snaps in this game. Tillery combined. Jerry Tillery, of course, returning off the COVID list. Christian Covington, of course, returning off the COVID list. Jerry Tillery, I think, played 90% of the defensive snaps in this game. How can Brandon Staley, earlier last week, leading up to this game, talking about how great of a job that these guys did, that you only use them for that type of rotation in the defensive snaps? To see what obviously worked, to see what limited the run game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Surprise, surprise, you go back to some different personnel and you yield over 100 yards rushing, back to where we were just a couple weeks ago. How do you not give these guys a fair shot after that type of performance and stepping up?
Yeah,
I don't get that, because that's a little bit Anthony Lynn type of coaching philosophy to me, where Anthony Lynn, we know, very much favored the veterans as it relates to as opposed to the rookie players that he had on his team.
I will give you this. On the last Chargers defensive possession, the game was probably out of reach by now, but Broncos got the ball back with like 4 minutes left. I don't think they attempted a pass. It didn't feel like. But Kyzir White had Melvin Gordon stop for no gain, turns that into a broken tackle, turns that into 7 yards. Next play, first down run. A few plays later, Javonte Williams breaks like 4 tackles at once, going up the middle, then gets like pulled by his offensive lineman somehow randomly for a first down. Like on that possession, on that series, I would have liked to have seen them get big on the interior defensive line. Like, make them beat you another way. If Teddy Bridgewater beats you with his legs, or Teddy Bridgewater beats you with a pass to Tim Patrick on the sidelines or Tavon Campbell, fine. Like, I am not letting the Broncos beat me on runs up the middle.
Well, Dan, I thank you for that, because you're just putting the exclamation point on my previous point. The Denver Broncos, again, were playing without barely any healthy linemen. How do you not take advantage of this? Dan, collectively between Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, the Denver Broncos only completed 15 passes this entire game. What type of variant universe was this game played in to where the Denver Broncos can absolutely dominate the time of possession like they did, and yet have 2 quarterbacks in rotation because one gets hurt, one comes in and throws an interception, and literally only complete 15 passes throughout the entirety of this game, collectively for under 200 yards?
Well, the weird part is, you're right. It felt like the Broncos dominated the possession. Do you know the Chargers had more time of possession than the Broncos did by the end of the game?
I know at the end collectively I got it, but
yeah, especially the first half,
sure as hell didn't feel like.
Yes, right. But 9 penalties, 75 yards, like that's not going to cut it. But like you're right. You gave up what, like 57 yards to Javonte Williams on 3 receptions. Like that's not going to do well. Like, but otherwise, receivers didn't get more than what would you say, like 30 yards? Teddy Bridgewater had 129 yards. Like I said, I'm not worried about this team beating us with Teddy Bridgewater. Like but
it didn't matter, Dan.
I know that's the infuriating part. I could have been the quarterback of the Broncos. We probably could have
Melvin Gordon could have ran from the Wildcat this entire game, and it wouldn't have mattered. That's how useless, essentially, the Denver Broncos quarterback was in this game. You did not need for them to beat you.
Recollection, I remember 2 plays, like 2 big passing plays that Teddy Bridgewater had. One of them was that one to, I think it was Tim Patrick up the middle for like 20 yards, 15 yards or so on second.
Tim Patrick on Campbell.
On Campbell. And the other one was right after we should have had that 5-yard loss turns into a 5-yard gain. And then they get that catch to Cortland Sutton on the sideline. I think that was on Tevon Campbell again, I believe. Like those are the only 2 passes I remember that like were like big.
If you count the Javonte Williams, which would probably be okay if you designate it as the running back getting over 50 yards receiving. I know I said earlier that there was no receivers that went over 30 yards receiving, but that would be the one big play exception that was done is the sideline play by Javonte Williams. Yes, but other than that,
and then easy plays. Like you give up that one chunk play, 50 yards to them, easy first down in like the 5-yard line. You give up a pick 6, which honestly, like they got lucky. They were in the wrong position. They would have gotten roasted if he caught it, but the ball went in their hands and they took advantage of it and they scored. Like
Dennis,
that's 14 points.
Speaking of that 14, the second touchdown that was scored by Javonte Williams. The Chargers only had 3 men in the box in that play. Did you realize that?
I believe they had like 4 defensive linemen. They were split super out wide, where it literally looked like there was 1 linebacker and 2 interior defensive linemen, but there was like 6 yards between the 2 interior defensive linemen.
Yes.
What are we doing?
What type of defensive formation is that? And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm asking you this, Dan, because I know you watched the game more recently than me. Did you see any of Joey Bosa coming inside along the interior?
Nothing that I saw that was noteworthy. No. I did see him switch sides.
God forbid you're playing a team that's down 4 of their offensive linemen, so you're not going to try to take advantage to create a mismatch. God forbid. This is healthy, Jake. This is healthy because I really do think we are getting to the bottom of what actually went wrong in this game. And like you're right. I think some of it is like players weren't put in their players were put in positions to succeed, but sometimes the wrong players were put in that position. So like for example, Joey Bosa never went in the middle. For example, like Bradwell was in there randomly. For example, Tillery was in there way more than he probably should have been. But like even with all of that, they still had the opportunities. McKitty outsnapped Steven Anderson. Steven Anderson, who was proven throughout this entire season. Nothing against Trey McKitty because he's obviously a rookie. He hasn't played that much. But
Steven Anderson been looking good.
How and why is he outsnapping one of your better blocking tight ends? And to hell with that, essentially your fullback that has registered Gabe Neighbors as completely useless for this team. How is that happening? How is Kenneth Murray only getting 9 snaps throughout this game?
Especially in that game.
Tell me where this makes sense, both offensively and defensively. I don't get this. And we have to circle back around to Sino Clemente, Dan. Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. Because the big question, obviously, was we knew that there was a chance that Matt Filer was not going to go to this game. Obviously, he didn't. Sino Clemente, who had started his first game since November of 2020 last year for Houston, if I remember reading that correctly. That was from Popper, who put that stat out. The choices were between him or your 5th-round rookie, Brennan Hymas. I do not see a universe to tell me that Brennan Hymas was going to be that much worse than what we saw from Sino Clemente.
He single-handedly blew up your opening drive, third quarter drive. Like, I think he got called for a holding, false start, and then gave up a sack. All on the same series.
It was all in the same drive.
That led to the missed field goal.
And Brandon Staley obviously addressed that earlier today in his press conference. And the sole reason that he said for why he chose him over Hymas was experience. And look, I understand that from a coaching perspective. I get it. But if I had the choice between Austin
That's
Ekeler,
why I'm being kind, but that's why Tyrod Taylor started.
Don't give me this, he's a rookie for a reason type of quote. Don't do that. I know Brandon Staley's had to address this question about Brandon James a lot and basically has said he will play when he's ready.
Yeah, he doesn't think he's ready. Yep.
Look, again, I asked the question. I don't see a universe that Brandon James could have been any worse than what we saw from Sino Clemente yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. Again, hindsight's 2020, but like knowing what we know now, I would rather seen James. And if James did that, like okay, like he's a rookie, like fine, but no excuse for 68. And like some of it was bad. Like it wasn't even close. Like these kinds of games, like you feel for guys like Justin Herbert and Derwin James and Keenan Allen, like they balled out. Honestly, like Justin Herbert. Okay, Justin Herbert
Kyzir
did.
White. I know you ripped in on him a little bit, but it still led the team ultimately in tackles. Eight individually, 4 assists. I mean, like you said, people who have busted their ass.
Yeah, but look, like Justin Herbert also, like he didn't have a bad day, but like he could have been picked off a few more times if they didn't drop him. But like some of those probably shouldn't even happen because the Chargers got screwed over by either stupid penalties they gave or they couldn't tackle to save their life. And like we go back to like off season, Jake, where Brandon Staley was talking about like fundamentals. And I remember like Drew Tranquil was all pissed off because like he was, or not pissed off, but he was impatiently waiting to be able to actually like touch a football, but they wouldn't even let him play until they figured out like specific, very fundamental stuff. Like, I don't know if it's fundamentals. Like, I mean, I know missed tackles, like tackling is a fundamental thing, but like, they just didn't finish. Like, I don't think the Joey Bosa stiff arm from Teddy Bridgewater is like a fundamental issue that Joey Bosa has. Like, he just didn't finish the play. Like, for as good as Joey Bosa is, like, you need to finish that. And that happened all game long. Not just with him. I think you saw Drew Tranquil have some issues. You saw Kyzir White, Uchenna Nwosu, Jerry Tillery, Covington had some issues. The whole interior defensive line had some issues. Mike Davis at times had issues. Tavon Campbell obviously had issues. But, like, I don't think it's like, you say sometimes, like, they're allergic to, like, doing the things that they know work. It sucks because 90% of the time, like, they're looking good. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're in the right plays. They're executing. But they are just, it is so tough to watch. And I mean, look, as pissed off as we are, imagine what the players feel like right now.
Oh yeah, no, I will not dispute that one at all. Won't
even
try.
What is like what is if put yourself in Keenan Allen's shoes? Like, what are you saying after that game?
It was hard enough for me to even comprehend or muster the words to even think about how I was going to start this show today. So I don't even want to know what happened in the film room today during practice. I don't even want to have a clue to go back and have to watch that again as a player.
They're going to be pissed.
It sucks. I don't ever want to rewatch this game again. And yet the offense and the defense have to sit down and watch the film of an absolutely porous performance.
If I'm Brandon Staley, I am pissed off.
I felt after the game yesterday, listening to his press conference, that was probably, I felt the most frustrated that Brandon Staley
I didn't hear 1 second of it. Was he pissed?
He really highlighted the missed tackles in that game. You could see it from his demeanor and how disappointed he was in the lack of execution. And Dan, again, as you were saying a second ago, is it fundamentals? Yes. To me, throwing a ball and catching a ball when it is catchable, obviously, is a fundamental thing. And the Chargers, again, I don't know where this issue of the drops came from, but I can't remember a season to where the Chargers actually led the league in passes dropped. I can't remember that. And in the first half alone yesterday,
rules of regression
they had
bring that
4.
back. You hope that like that comes back down to earth. The Chiefs were playing terribly, and all of a sudden, like things kind of leveled out, and they're playing better. Chargers dropping a whole bunch. Like usually, those kinds of stats level out as the season progresses. Again, I'm not trying to sit here and say like giving any excuses, but I'm just saying like the law of averages. Like you would think that a team led by Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Donald Park, like these guys catch balls, like they're pretty good at it.
You would think so, but when it started a little over a month ago, it hasn't necessarily stopped happening. And you added a handful more to your league-leading stat in the worst possible way to help yourself pad to keep you in the lead of that. So yes, Dan, it's fundamentals and it's overall execution.
How do you see...
It is just a little bit frustrating, though, to see when this Chargers team looks like the offensive juggernaut and has the belief and the wherewithal. Look, here, I'll preface this like this, Dan. Is Brandon Staley, do I believe that he is a leader of men? 100%. Do I believe that he has instilled a different type of confidence level and belief in this team to win football games? Yes. Hence, Justin Herbert's 5 comeback wins that he has orchestrated this season alone. Like I go back and say from my original biggest problem here is the inconsistencies. How can you go from a game like you had against the Cleveland Browns, comeback or not, the offense was able to hum and bring you back in that game, and then drop the way you did against the Baltimore Ravens? How do you go from a game like you had where Justin Herbert had one of the most efficient performances of his career against the Philadelphia Eagles to then come right back against the Minnesota Vikings and not being able to execute? How do you go from a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers to where, in my belief, was Justin Herbert's best performance as a quarterback that he has had? And I say that in terms of everything that he was doing, not just the throws that he was completing, the way he was manipulating defenses with the eyes, obviously getting out of the pocket and being able to extend plays with his legs. How do you go from that to what you just put up against the Denver Broncos? The inconsistencies here are just absolutely staggering.
They go from the win against Washington football team, which like that wasn't the greatest victory in terms of stats. Then they lay a dud against the Cowboys, in which like, who is this? Like every which way could have gone wrong, went wrong then. And then right afterwards, they beat the Chiefs. Like, I agree. It's frustrating. And I think to kind of wrap a bow on this, like maybe the question I have for you, Jake, is like, and be honest, through all of this, through all the ups and downs, I think like the biggest question is like, what is this team? Like, is this team a 7-9 team, now 7-10 team that, has a good quarterback and all of a sudden like they're able to overcome some things? Is this team like an 11-5, 11-6, 10-7, like scary team to go? Like, is it like, should we just be focusing on draft mode? Like what is this team? Like in your opinion, like what are we? Like, are we a good team, bad team, okay team, great team? Like, I really don't know. Like, I know we have potential.
As Stephen A likes to say whenever he comes out with his new Stephen A's list, the situation is fluid. It's fluid throughout the season. That's how it goes. It's fluid. When the Chargers started off 4-1, trust me, nobody was more surprised than I am. I didn't expect that to happen. When they dropped to the Dallas Cowboys, I didn't pick them to go into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs that following week. Hell no. Those first 5 weeks of the season really surprised me about this team. Unfortunately, injuries have started to really show up on this team in a multitude of different positions. The inconsistency in play calling and execution and fundamentals has taken this team back a few steps. So who are they? If you were to just go by record alone, simple eye test, Dan, right now this is a fringe at best playoff team. On the fence. When it looked like a month ago that it was a slam dunk that this team was going to the playoffs, no doubt about it. They'll be lucky if they make the playoffs. And I say that they'll be lucky because the last month, if it has shown you one thing, is that you don't know what Chargers team is going to trot out there on Sundays. Doesn't matter who the opponent is.
In the other NFL, like these games have been bananas all over the place.
Right, I get that. But just focusing on the Chargers, you don't know what type of team you are getting because the last month has proven that they cannot string wins together, be consistent, and start new positive trends that make you believe that not only are they going to be able to sustain enough wins to get into the playoff picture in general, but once you get there, are you even going to be able to win a playoff game? I am sitting here today telling you that I don't believe that to be the case for this team today. The Cincinnati Bengals game, which we'll have plenty to break down later on this week. You won't like my answer for that, spoiler alert. But you see what the Bengals just did to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Which really felt like that was the game that the Chargers should have put up when you see those final numbers. You got three more divisional games to close out the season. Denver, Kansas City, and the Raiders. Dan, I can't trust this team right now. Simply put, I can't until I see something that tells me different.
That's the unfortunate part is like you don't know which team to expect to play on Sundays. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers beat any team in the NFL, literally. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they lost to any team in the NFL. Well, let me change that. I'd be surprised if they lost to bad teams. But I would not be surprised if they lost to any good team. So like that puts me they're in like the above average to good team right now. But what is separating them from being better than that is consistency. And like that comes with time. Like you look at what the New England Patriots are doing right now. Like talk about consistency. My goodness. Like that's what you want. Look at what the Packers are doing. Like that's consistency. I mean,
for as much as this is kind of coming to Brandon Staley's defense, as much as we want to laud him for the things that we said about him prior to the beginning of this season and coming in and changing the culture and obviously getting off to a hot start, which historically the Chargers are not known to do, we have to also remember at the end of the day that this man is a rookie head coach.
Yep.
Simply put, this is not Bill Belichick, unfortunately, coaching this team. That's all I'm going to say about the Brandon Staley scenario. The mistakes are going to come.
There's only so much you can do in one season.
Right. We should expect it. But at the same time, unless you can string together consistency and positive trends that show me that you're going to be able to sustain a win on Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, then as of right now, I can't trust you.
I can't say anything better than that. Hopefully this team can build trust. Hopefully we can build trust in them. Look, it's going to be a crazy game coming up. I mean, this is a sure as hell got to have a game, in my opinion. Like 6-6 does not feel good.
It's a log jam now in the AFC West. You have insane. Now. Do you realize, Dan, that if the Denver Broncos happen to pull out a victory against the Kansas City Chiefs, then we're talking about the first place Denver Broncos could happen after this coming Sunday if they are able to pull out a win. What in the hell is in the Kool-Aid in the AFC West right now?
Whatever it is, I wish the Chargers drank more of it so we can win more. Tough loss. Tough loss against this Denver Broncos team. Frustrating. Offense looked like it was doing well and then punched itself with math. Defense played well at times and other times couldn't stop a nosebleed, couldn't get out of their own way. Chargers are currently 6-5. They are still in the playoffs as of today. There is still hope. But they got to get some things right. And if they don't, we're on the outside looking in. That's just facts. I do trust Brandon Staley, and I trust like the playmakers if they could stay healthy, which they have been. I trust them. I do. But at the end of it, they got to show up. Everybody has to show up. Do your job. Like I know we always talk about how much we hate Bill Belichick, but like one of the things I love about him is it does not matter the name on the back of the jersey. Do your job. That's all you got to do. I got to say, that was a little therapeutic. Do you feel any better about this?
I wouldn't necessarily say if I feel better about it. I'm just hoping that I'm actually hoping for an opportunity for me to eat my words down. Let me put it in that perspective. I hope to God that someone can shut me the hell up, and I'll be glad to come on this show and eat crow about it and for me to admit that I'm wrong. I have no problem admitting that I'm wrong if it means for the best possible reasons. I've said that plenty of times.
Yeah.
So are we going to see that happen? I don't know. I would love to see it happen. Show me something different.
I feel like there needs to be an outro song like "Tell Me Something Good." You want to sing it?
No, it's more like "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend" has always been a good favorite on this show, especially in 2020 for our episodes. That should be like an outro right now. That should be playing is definitely that song because that's what everybody feels right now. It's doom and gloom. The end is near. Dan, you have the one bright speck of optimism because if you look at it today, yes, the Chargers are still technically mathematically in the playoff hunt. Do they have a chance at this? Yes, they do. Are they going to be able to pull it out? I will not say that they will. Because I can't confidently today
I will not
say that they will.
That they will.
I won't. No.
Oh, man.
I got to see something different.
Fair enough. All right. Anything else you want to tell the good people before we log off of this Chargers-Broncos recap in which the Chargers lost to the Broncos?
Chargers fans everywhere, I am sorry that you have had to endure this Jekyll and Hyde performance from your team. We've all had to endure it. We're enduring it. We're having to go through it together. It sucks. Yeah, what did I say last week? We should get a shirt that says, when you're a Chargers fan, you have to, you experience, or this is what you go through, and basically have all your health conditions on the back. Yeah. If we could add in a column of physical self-inflicted pain, like bashing your head against a wall or throwing stuff at your TV or screaming at the top of your lungs, whatever it is, that has to be added to the back of the shirt. Give me any non-lethal medical condition that you could suffer, and I guarantee you that a good majority of them are probably going to be what every Chargers fan had to endure on Sunday.
I'm hoping that we can get some pain relief this coming Sunday in Cincinnati. I will be there. We need this victory. We're going to be previewing it later this week. They need this one. For Jake Hefner, you can find him at Jake D. Hefner, myself at Chargers Homer on Twitter. Again, you can find us and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you hit those bell notifications and find us wherever you get your podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning into Chargers Unleashed. I know this was not the rosy episode, but we had to shoot this one straight. Frustrating for all of us, but we will get through it, and we will get through it together. We'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.